Sunil, you can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Namo Buddhaya Vandami Bhante. My name is Sunil Patil and I am the host for today's Dhamma session. I welcome all participants to our weekly Dhamma session. Topic for today's Dhamma session is the Noble Eightfold Path for Part 1. And our teacher is Venerable Bhante Kusala. Let me introduce you to our today's speaker, Venerable Bhante Kusala. Bhante Kusala is a Buddhist monk from Sri Lanka. Born in 1987, he entered monastic life at the age of 16 and completed his studies in Sri Lanka, Italy, and at Harvard Divinity School, USA. He has conducted research on mindfulness, provided spiritual care in the US hospitals, and taught at universities as a lecturer in Pali. Bhante Kusala helps children, youth, and adults with their spiritual counseling needs. He currently is a resident monk at the Cambridge Peace House in Massachusetts, USA. To begin with, we'll ask Kama Yachana and Panjashil Yachana to Bhante. Okasa vandami Bhante, Dvarat ena maya katam, sabba aparadam kamatu me Bhante, Dutiyampi okasa vandami Bhante, Dvarat ena maya katam, sabba aparadam kamatu me Bhante, Tatiyampi okasa vandami Bhante, Dvarat ena maya katam, sabba aparadam kamatu me Bhante. Panchashila. Okasa aham Bhante, Tisaranena sa panchasila dhammam yachami, Anukkaha katva silam detame Bhante, Dutiyampi okasa aham Bhante, Tisaranena sa panchasila dhammam yachami, Anukkaha katva silam detame Bhante, Tatiyampi okasa aham Bhante, Tisaranena saha panchasila dhammam yachami, Anukkaha katva silam detame Bhante.
Let us say Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Please repeat after me. Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Yampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Yampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami.
Yampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Tiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami.
Tiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Pānātipātā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Pānātipātā vēramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Kāmesu miccācārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Kāmesu miccācāra veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Pramere majjapama datthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Sūrāmeraya maccapamādatthāna veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Is it the time to start then?
Yes, sir. Yes, Bhante. May I please request you to start today's Dhamma talk, Bhante? And today's topic is the Noble Eightfold Path, Part 1.
Excellent. So, welcome to sharing wisdom from the Buddha. As we begin this discussion, let us keep in mind that we will have a part 2 of this discussion in the following week, and perhaps even more later. Knowing that, usually before listening to Dhamma, the advice that many monks give is sadhukang sunatha, listen to the Dhamma very well, and manasikarota, also attend to it. That means while listening to the Dhamma, you have this attention and commitment to practicing it. By listening to this Dhamma, if you ever have a thought to argue, but instead you can convert that thought to a thought that, let me clarify something that I had known previously. And by clarifying it, I will have further understanding in Dhamma. So with that intention, your mind becomes peaceful immediately. That craving, that grasping suddenly vanishes, thereby having a slight freedom, or else called a little release in your mind. So as we begin the discussion on Noble Eightfold Path, I may use Mahachattārisaka Sutta for the discussion, that is Majjhima Nikaya 117, the Great 40. This is called Great 40 in English. And in it you find the Noble Eightfold Path well explained. And in the beginning, we may also stop at the word Ariya. Ariya is noble. Why is it called Ariya Satcha, Ariya Atthangika Magga? Ariya Satcha is for the Four Noble Truths. And Ariya Atthangika Magga is the Noble Eightfold Path. When it is Ariya, it has this quality of uplifting your mind to a Ariya state, a noble state, and that this Dhamma was realized by noble minds, those who have cultivated their minds to a higher state. So when it is understood by noble minds and that it leads to a noble state, it then becomes a noble path. The path itself becomes noble. And that Attangika is the word for eightfold, Ashta Angas. Magga is simply path, the path. And this, in the first sermon of the Buddha said, Majjhima Patipada Tathagatena Abhisambuddha. The Tathagata, the realized one, the thus gone one, thus went and that thus arrived, this Supreme Buddha, Abhisambuddha, awakened into Majjhima Patipada, the Noble Eightfold Path. So as you reflect on that, it may come to your mind that, what the Buddha realized is, that this is something to be cultivated, bhavetabba, and that his awakening was marked by this understanding that bhavetabbancha bhavitam, what should be cultivated has been cultivated by me. Bhavitam has been cultivated. Bhavetabbam, that which should be cultivated, has now been cultivated. So now you may get the understanding that anyone who has that thought in their mind, that what should be cultivated has been cultivated in my mind, has become an arhat. It's that. Although we try to complicate this Dhamma, but it is right here that the simple understanding that cultivating this total noble eightfold path comprises the realization itself. By doing so, you may observe within you that any greed, any hatred, any delusion no longer exist in your mind, not even in a subtle way, not even as an underlying tendency, not even as an anusaya. As in Majjhima Nikaya 43 and 44, you have this also in Majjhima Nikaya 148, Chachakka Sutta, you see the word anusaya. These underlying tendencies to lust, hatred, and delusion, raga anusaya, patigha anusaya, moha anusaya, underlying tendencies to lusting, aversion, and delusion, these no longer exist in a mind that has cultivated completely the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, to make it very simple, if someone who is addicted to something comes to you and say, I have this problem, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to computer games, how can I become a different person? The first question you should ask is the question that is given to us by the Buddha. Are you willing to abandon any addiction, any extremes, and then come to the middle ground? Come into the middle ground. And by doing so, if that person says, yes, I can come to the middle ground, when they make that conscious decision, then you are able to very much guide this person toward greater release from that state of mind, from that suffering. Whether it is a teenager or a grown-up person having any trouble like that, they must first come to the middle ground. So did the Buddha, that when he realized that he had done extreme indulgence in sensual pleasures by being a royal and getting married in an early age and having all the luxuries that existed at his time, all the best knowledge, good education, mastery in all the skills, he can really conquer the world. He builds that kind of confidence, having parents who wanted this prince to become a universal monarch. They thought through it very well, and they got the best teachers, and then they guided him in that direction. But then he realized that my calling is different. This does not lead to an ending of any suffering. Aging and death comes to me. Illness comes to me. Nobody can stop these from coming to me if I go in that direction. So he abandoned those and went in search of truth. What did he do? He removed his beautiful hair. He abandoned the royal clothes. He abandoned the royal retinue. And he really crossed the river to the other side. That he became a simple ascetic, just begging for food and looking for the Satya, the Arya Satya, noble truth. And this is simply a practice that anyone would do when they are not satisfied with what they have been doing, and that it doesn't build the life that you want to build. It does not even bring you any closer to the ending of suffering, what is perceived as suffering. Then they would abandon it. You would abandon it. So he did that. And having abandoned, he started looking for teachers. He met with teachers, and finally he had these 5 friends, Kondanya, Vappa, Bhaddiya, Mahanama, and Assaji, telling him that now you have mastered so many things in meditation also. Why don't you give extreme suffering to your body? Atta Kilamatanu Yoga. Anuyoga is engaging. Atta is the self. Kilamata, giving so much suffering to the body, or else called self-mortification. Slowly and gradually allowing the body to experience death in a meditative form by abandoning any food intake. By doing so, all the feelings of the body will be vanished, and that may be the end of any suffering. He went to the extreme of that, and then he said, this is the furthest that any human being can go in this kind of practice, and it is extremely painful, and it is not leading to the noble state of a mind. So having realized that, and also having told people in his first sermon, he himself understood and later told this, that the first path he went on as a royal prince, the self-indulgence, indulgence in sensual pleasures, kama sukha allikanu yoga, anuyoga, engaging in kama sukha, engaging in sensual happinesses, looking at pleasant things, listening to the best music, like nowadays, any music that is considered best, you will have it. The best perfumes, dancers, and all of that. He said it is hino, very low. Gammo, it is of the ordinary ones. Gammo is like vulgar. The next one, Potujjaniko, is of the ordinary worldlings business, worldlings affair. Anariyo, it's not noble. Anatta Sanghito, it does not have any sense, essence, no use of any, no essence can be reached by that kind of practice. And for the next one, the self-mortification, he said, Dukkho Anariyo Anatta Sanghito. It brings up so much suffering to the body. It is not noble, Anariyo Anatta Sanghito, meaningless. And then having abandoned these, he realized the Noble Eightfold Path. Majjhima Patipada. It's called the middle path because of placing it in between that self-mortification and extreme indulgence of pleasures. So the Noble Eightfold Path, when he went realizing it one by one, he realized that he must have the right understanding. That is the first noble component of the path. Samma Ditti. What happens when someone has a misunderstanding? You tell this person to abandon that view, you argue with this person, you tell them that you are wrong, that doesn't help them. Until they realize that this is a misunderstanding, this is not factual, and it's not leading to his own peaceful mind. So having right understanding means there are no misunderstandings about the Dhamma, the nature. Now let us put this into simple terms that you can understand. If you look at my palm here, and that my other palm over here, and this I will name as my left one, as my reality, as the reality, and here is my expectations. Now, my expectations increase, but the reality remains the same. The gap between expectations and reality gets bigger and bigger. And that means you are losing your mindfulness. You are sidetracked. The bigger the gap is, further away you are from reality. You bring this closer, the gap becomes thinner and thinner. And you use the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, that which was praised by the noble ones, like the Samma Sambuddha, Arahants, Sangha, anyone who is on the path. And when this gap becomes one with the middle path, there is no way that it can consist any suffering. And that is how you stay with reality. But there is this misunderstanding that the Buddha is represented that he only spoke about suffering, dukkha, which is not true. He spoke about sukha and the highest sukha, happiness and the highest happiness. Anyone who says that the Buddha was so negative about everything, they are actually using a concept without realizing that the Buddha was leading you to the happiness and to the highest happiness. How? By asking you to follow the path that leads you to the freedom from any suffering. And what is, right view and what is wrong view? What is misunderstanding and what is good understanding? It is this Ariya Satya, the noble truths. In that noble truths, there are four. Dukkha Arya Satya, the noble truth of dukkha, the transient suffering nature. Anything that arises has the nature of, quickly changing. And let's stop there. Why is it dukkha? Now, I'm looking at the camera and you are seeing me. How does this function happen? And how does the hearing happen? How is all of this happening? And it's only when you really get this, then you realize, my goodness, without this right understanding, there is no way you can go to the second aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. And that is why the right understanding comes as the first aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. If seeing through your eyes and looking at the camera is the only thing that happened in the world, you will not be hearing anything, you will not be smelling anything, tasting anything, not be having physical sensations, not be thinking anything. What kind of a person would that be? It's only a person who is only seeing. Suppose there is a person like that. Even then, for him to see new things, the first thing that he saw should disappear. It's not a permanent thing. So he starts seeing new things. So the seeing experience itself is quickly changing. But what happened to the one that you saw? It vanished. There was cessation happening continuously in such a way that it cannot be seen by the naked eye. This is why we see things with our eyes closed in meditation. It is through the wisdom eye, the eye of prajna, panya chakku, that you start seeing that anything that you see, anything that you hear, anything that you smell, anything that you taste, any physical sensations, any thinking, they all immediately vanish. Otherwise, there's only something constant, no other happenings around you. If all these things are vanishing momentarily, having come through your cognitive experience, how can any person say that any of these things that arise and pass away is yours? Knowing and seeing thus, will you be able to say that seeing was me and that me disappeared and then new me came and that new me disappeared? That's a weird way of talking. This is why the wisdom I shows to a yogi, someone who is engaged in body-mind cultivation, that, oh, you should have that wisdom that anything that you experience momentarily vanish. They don't even last for a millisecond. Millions of these experiences happen right now without us even paying attention to any of that. Knowing and seeing thus, evan janato, evan passato. Can anyone say that any of these experiences are me, mine, or myself? Or can anyone instead say that things that are quickly changing come and disappear, come and disappear, come and go? arise and disappear. And now you may be coming to a little bit of an understanding. What does this understanding do to you? That you cannot hold any grudges in your mind. No point of holding any grudges. Anything that is informed to you through your mind, any harm anyone has done to you, all of these become not so useful, that you don't see a point of holding on to anything, as they are not yours to react. They come and go. It's like someone may call you a donkey, and that you hear it only once, but if you repeat that in your mind, do I eat grass like a donkey? Do I walk like a donkey? Do I have a tail like a donkey? You are simply repeating that and making it your experience, and that you are, becoming that, whatever that person told you. That's I, me, myself making. But the right understanding, Sammaditthi, has this liberating aspect by showing you that dukkhameva uppajjamanam uppajjati. What arises is dukkha. What arises is something that is transient, something that quickly changes, something new arises, and this keeps happening continuously, whether you pay attention to it or not. And then dukkhameva nirujjamanam nirujjati. Only that which is transient cease, and then they vanish. So that nature is called dukkha. It's more of a wisdom statement. The Buddha never said life is dukkha. He never said, jivitan dukkham. He said life is impermanent. To make us understand that, you cannot hold on to your possessions, relatives, that what comes to you may be taken away by you without you realizing it. In a most unprepared situation, there comes this unpreparedness in a form of grief, that you start crying and weeping, beating your chest and saying, why me? Why this is happening to me? Oh God, then come and save me. Don't bring me any more suffering. But by praying, you can only get a little relief. But by understanding that this was supposed to happen, I'm living in a world where nothing is, sure. Nothing is, set in an orderly way. Anything has a dent, a brokenness, that they may be taken away, that you may not even have a moment to say a proper goodbye. Like that Titan submarine that went into the depths of the ocean to explore the Titanic, and that was their final goodbye. To those families who were waiting for their loved ones to come home, they were never prepared for this. By signing papers, agreements, none of that can come and help. When tragic hits, it's a way of the tragic. I know some friend monks say that when my mother died, that I will never cry, but you never know. If you have that understanding and that you have cultivated your mind according to the Noble Eightfold Path, instead of crying, you will say, yeah, this was supposed to happen. That this is the Dhamma, this is the nature. You stay closer to the reality, not having expectations that may this never happen to me. That's only a waste of time. May aging never happen to me. May illness never come to me. This is only a wishful thinking. It's only bringing you away from the reality. However you define this reality, it is only just not what whoever is far from it is in great danger, great amount of suffering. So we are actually hovering around this concept of right understanding, samma ditti. Katamancha bhikkhave samma ditti. What monks is the right view? Dukkhang ariya satchang, dukkha samudayang ariya satchang, dukkha nirodhang ariya satchang, dukkha nirodha gamini patipada ariya satchang. There is the truth of dukkha and the truth that this dukkha arises due to these conditions, and that there is this truth that the cessation of dukkha is possible, and that this is the path leading toward the cessation of suffering. And this amazing knitted piece of cloth, the art piece, is what you have in mind when you begin reflecting on the value of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right here is so much packed that you don't even realize how valuable Samma Ditti, right view, is. Whoever is not on the path have never come to the right understanding. It is because of that they keep going back to their habits. It is because of this misunderstanding that they ignore the truth, so they live a life full of avidya, full of ignorance. So not knowing these four truths is avidya. And that means, on the other hand, on the other side, knowing these four truths is vidya. This is why the Buddha said, upon realizing the four truths, under the first aspect of the Eightfold Path, the Buddha said, not the physical eye, but the wisdom eye arose. Chakkung udapadi. Wisdom eye came to me. Most people don't have this wisdom eye unless they listen to a teacher who can tell them that this is how you start seeing it. Jnanang udapadi. The knowledge came to me. Panya udapadi. Wisdom came to me. So the I is chakku. Chakkung udapadi. I came to me. Another I came to me. It's like it's I without using the physical eye. A different way of seeing came to me. Knowledge came to me because of seeing that way. Panya came to me. Wisdom that was not taught to me before came to me. Vidya udapadi. Vidya. Avidya is ignorance. Vidya is right knowledge. This came to me. Some good understanding came to me. Aloko udapadi. Luminosity. Radiance. Wow. This is the realization that I have not known, never heard before. That came to me. So the Buddha says in Samma Ditti Sutta that, friends, it's actually it's ascribed to Venerable Sariputta. There is a conversation there between Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Kottita. in that, what conditions should be there for the right view to arise. These two conditions should be there. Parato gozo, hearing from someone like a monk, a dharma teacher, an arahant, the Buddha, and that is parato gozo, somebody else's voice. And yoniso manasikaro, attention to the origin of things. Yoni so manasikaro. Yoni is the birth canal, where birth happens. That there will be a child in the mother's womb, and that when the mother is due, the child will be born through the birth canal. So that is Yoni. In Dhamma understanding, there is an origin for anything, where things arise. It's not a place, it's just seeing the root. How does the seeing itself happens? You see, there should be some contact, some conditions for contact. Three things, Tinnan Sangati, going together of three things is contact, passo. Tinnan Sangati passo. Three things coming together is a contact. What three things? Chakkunja paticca rupe uppajjati chakku vijnana. Because chakkunja paticca, because of the physical eye and external forms, rupecha, uppajjati chakku vijnana. Eye consciousness arises. That you have to be conscious on anything around you, and that you set your attention on it. Now you are conscious on it. Otherwise, your eyes may be open, but your mind may not be there. So when you set your mind on something, there needs to be these three things. The eye in here, the physical eye, and then an object outside, something that you are looking at, and that you are now conscious on it. Tinnan Sangati. Going together of these three things create or gives rise to passo, contact. Tinnan Sangati passo. Right? So this is how the seeing experience happens. Now you have what you can in Dhamma explain as a contact. Tinnan Sangati passo. Passa pacca vedana. Because of this contact, there will be feelings that you can categorize into three feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. These three. Pleasant feelings, you can tell that these are pleasant. Unpleasant feelings, you can tell that these are unpleasant. But neutral ones, oh, there are so many of those, but because of ignorance, because we lack mindfulness, we ignore so many of these. When you have mindfulness, you begin to see what you have been ignoring, and you begin to understand that, oh, there are so many neutral feelings that you have been ignoring in this journey. And then you may realistically ask, is it possible to even notice all these feelings? You don't really have to. You only have to have the wisdom, and having seen them, you stop looking for them, that, oh, this is the truth, that they arise. It's either pleasant, painful, or neutral feelings. When it is pleasant, there is wanting it. When it's unpleasant, there's not wanting it. And when it's neutral, you don't notice it. So you have ignorance, liking, disliking, and delusion. So this is the birth of Lobha, Dosa, and Moha. greed, hatred, and delusion. This is where tanha plays the biggest role of tangling and entangling your mind until there is no more freedom. That you stay so stressed that you don't know where to actually find any relief in your own mind. So, in right understanding, you have this kind of understanding, how an experience is felt or understood based on its true factors. You can say, oh, my eye sees, but you can also say, no, there is this dependently co-arising phenomena, paticca samuppanna phenomena, sansiddhi, that gives rise to any human experience, whether it is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, or thinking. There's no other way that an experience come into arise. There's no other way to know the world outside these 6 sense bases. This is where paticca samuppada, dependently arising Dhamma, plays the biggest role in the truth realizer's mind. When this exists, this comes to be. Imasmin sati idang hoti. When this does not exist, imasmin asati, this does not come to be. Idang nahoti. Arising of this, imassa upada, idang upajjati. This arises. Imassa nirodha. When you see the cessation of this, idang nirujjati. The cessation of this too should happen. Here too you have the right understanding of Dhamma. But this cessation itself is not Nibbana until one day with this knowledge you abandon any greed, any hatred and delusion. So this knowledge is the birth knowledge, knowledge of where the yoni, where the origin, where these experiences come into being. And so here means not the English so, it's like lengthwise or birthwise. It's like that English word, wise. Widthwise, lengthwise. So yoni so means birthwise, origin-wise. Manasikara, attention. So when you have that attention to how things arise, and then a voice of another, somebody explaining that to you, that this is how an experience comes to be, then the right view comes. Maybe it may have come to you slowly, that you will, simply put together this puzzle and say, oh my goodness, I never knew that right view had so many things that I didn't know before. You can say, yeah, right view means understanding 4 noble truths, but without having these other side supporting details in mind, I don't see how anyone will go to having right thoughts in their mind. That is the second aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. So in right understanding, you can look at it this way. I am now asking this question also. Maybe this will prepare you to think of more questions. So, if you think of the past, when are you thinking of the past? You are thinking of the past right now. If you are thinking of the future, when are you thinking of the future? You are thinking of it now. So the time you have is right now. Even if you are going to past lives, you are recalling it now. So there is no such thing that exists as past, such thing that exists as future. All that you have is this time, this moment that is conditionally arising and conditionally vanishing. As conditions disappear, they disappear. Moment to moment, without giving you any break, things arise, things vanish. So who has a break? Someone who closes eyes at least has a break from the eyes. Someone who stops smelling things has a break from smelling things. Someone who stops tasting things and takes a break has a break of tasting things. Someone who has no pain within the body has no pain there. It's like someone seated in meditation and prepared to sit longer, like 3 hours, like in the first watch of the Buddha's night on the day of awakening. So it takes about more than 3 hours for Dhamma to come to you. Nowadays, people do only just, okay, 20 minutes meditation. Nothing comes to you. And you say, oh, I do 20 minutes meditation every day. No realization comes. It's just the same person boiling with greed, hatred, and delusion. How can that person have any wisdom without giving any patience, any time for wisdom to dawn at their mind? The Buddha was impatient as an ascetic, that he did this, he did that, but he was very patient toward his awakening, that he had to wait until the whole puzzle came to his mind. Until then, he never declared that he has realized it. So when you have that understanding about the past and future, that they only exist now, yadatitang pahinantang, whatever belongs to the past, pahinantang, that has been ceased. Appatancha anagatam, the future has not arrived yet. Pachuppannancha yang dhammam, whatever the experience that is conditionally arisen now, tattha tattha vipassati, you see there and there. That is yoniso manasikara. That is right understanding. Seeing the experience as it arises. This is beautifully explained in the suttas. This verse is found in the Baddhekaratta Sutta. Someone who is attached to seclusion, a sutta about that. So you find this verse. Yadatitam pahinantang appattancha anagatam pachuppannancha yang dhammang tattha tattha vipassati. When you think of the past, it only exists now, so that it's gone. You abandon it. You don't stress over it. Appattancha anagatam. The future has not arrived yet, so it doesn't exist. Pachuppannancha yang dhamma. Pacha uppanna. Pratyutpanna dhamma. Whatever the dhamma, yang dhamma, that is arisen based on the present conditioning. What is conditioning now? Seeing happens because of three things coming together. Hearing happens because of three things coming together. These are conditions, pachas, pratyas. They arise because of these pratyas. Yan dhamma, whatever dhamma. Tatta tatta vipassati. You direct your insight right there. You start looking, oh, experiences arise based on conditioning, and these experiences disappear when these conditionings, when you start seeing that they disappear. So wisdom, right understanding begins to come to you. What is the understanding it gives? that all these things never can be called I, me, or myself because they are anicca. They are completely transient in nature. They change every millisecond. Millions of times they change. If it is anicca, if it is impermanent, it is then dukkha. It has that transient nature. This is why you cannot say, let me never die. Let me never get sick. Let me never get this or get that. You cannot wish it, that these things definitely are not in your control, that they arise, they pass away, and therefore there's no reason for you to keep holding on to anything. And that understanding is called anatta, no self. All right, so it's about an hour at this point. That is what I will say about right understanding, but we can unpack what is there under the second noble truth, the third noble truth, and the path. We are slowly opening it, and maybe we will use next week, and if we need, we may use the week after to just stop here and dig deeper in the territory of Dhamma, in unknown waters, to become familiar and set the stage for any future discussions. Any questions?
Sadhu, sadhu, Bhante. Thank you for the Dhammadana today. Now we will open the forum for question and answers. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can also post your question in the chat window.
So there's a question that please give the name of the sutta and where it can be found. You just Google any sutta name, like Mahachattariyasika Sutta. It is found online, and you can pick whatever translation that is available that fits your understanding. Like Bhikkhu Bodhis, like in Sutta Central, you have those. And then you can also say Majjhima Nikaya 117, then the sutta name comes. Or Majjhima Nikaya 148, that is Chachakka Sutta, and then it comes. So you can use Google.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. Any other questions from participants?
The Buddha said those who ask questions will be born wise next lifetime. So I'm sorry about those who never ask questions.
Yeah, I see another one more question in the chat window, Bhante.
Yeah.
Ask, what is the importance of Ashadi Purnima, and what's supposed Upasaka to do on this Purnima to get more merits?
Well, the question is asking about the full moon day of Asala. That is when the Buddha delivered his first sermon to the world upon realizing the Dhamma. That happened really last month on the full moon day, and then he spent contemplating on it, and then he went to, he observed the world to see who's there who can understand it. And then he went to, in his mind, to see where these people are, especially Alar Kalama and Uddakarama's son. But they have both gone. 7 days ago, Alar Kalama gone. Uddakarama's son passed away the night before, so they are not in a position to receive any teachings. Their mind was set accordingly in places where they cultivated their mind to. So then the Buddha's mind went to the 5 ascetics that I mentioned in the beginning. Kondanya Vappa Badhya Mahanamasati. And then he approached them. They were not willing to receive him. They said, "We have abandoned you." But then, as you know, in their mind, they said that. But again, as the Buddha came closer, they just dropped their views and they bowed to him. One received his bowl, the other received his robes, and they began showing respect to him and preparing a seat, washing his feet, and then slowly listening to what the Buddha had to say. Therefore, there is a high significance for this full moon day.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I see hand raised by Pankaj sir. Please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Nami Bhante, Namo Buddhaya. Bhante, my question is with respect to Sammaditthi. Obviously, out of the Eightfold Path, I see that carrying Sammaditthi is what would lead you to follow the remaining 7.
Yeah.
And it's the most difficult one to gain. So what are the hindrances, Bhante? We hear Dhamma all the time. We try to practice Dhamma all the time, yet we are not able to come to that realization. So what are the hindrances that we get, Bhante?
I think having just finished a 10 days meditation retreat in St. Louis, Missouri, in the Dhammasukha Meditation Center, electronics free, and we just only dedicated our time to practice and no distractions, total no Wi-Fi life, and that there were Dhamma talks in the evenings and we listened to them, then only this understanding comes to you. Only when you are, free from internet but begin listening and looking at internet right here inside of you and listening to the Buddha's suttas every day, at least for 10 days. There's tons of understanding that is irreversible. That means once you understand it, it never leaves you. And you become a completely different person. But I see now that in Sri Lankan temples and most places, culturally they give a talk on the Uposatha day, and maybe sometimes 5-6 monks give talks, and that's it. Nobody who are practicing the whole day listen to that kind of teaching. Only when you are inclined toward the practice, you realize, oh, this is what the Buddha has been doing. And that right understanding has this essence that it never gets corrupted. It is so pristine, like gold, that it does not get stained. It's only because people are not so free for at least minimum 10 days to be free from all these things and listen to a sutta. Be patient in those 3 hours of listening and asking questions and reflecting, and then practicing every day for 6-7 hours, maybe 3 hours long sittings and 4-hour long sittings, 6-hour long sittings, and then see, oh, look at this, I'm understanding it finally. How can an understanding come without that kind of effort? Clear, right?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante. Thank you. I see another question coming from Dr. Sunanda. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I just want to know that when Buddha was trying for the Buddhahood, that time the Mara came and like they were Mara who was trying to stop Buddha from not getting Buddhahood. So what is that Mara? Is it an external force or an internal force? Can you just explain about it?
I used to think that it is an internal force because lust, hatred, and delusion, they are all about putting us into a blind path. You like this, lusting after things. But then in the suttas, there is this Vasavarti Mara, a very powerful heavenly being who does not want anyone to get enlightened. Therefore, they start shooting arrows, and that means internal fear. He's trying to instill internal fear in the Buddha to stop him from reflecting this way, but he failed because fear had no footing in someone who understands how things arise and how things pass away. So it's internal Mara, anything that leads to lusting, hatred, and delusion, like the Buddha says, Pamado Machunopada. Anyone who is neglecting this practice is in the path toward the death. It's an inevitable Mara. So Machunopadang is the evil one's path. He wins. Appamado Amatapada. Those who are heedful, who are not neglecting it and practicing and seeing it, they have a relaxed mind, and therefore they are on the Amatapada, on the path of deathless. So obviously there is the internal forces that you need to conquer, hindrances and any of that. And if someone is going to become the Buddha, that celestial powerful being who's called Vasavati Mara, who has a lifespan of eons and eons, very long lifespan, very powerful, will try to fool you and stop you from reaching that kind of realization. Because it's like hacking the system and seeing the world just as a normal human being and opening your mind to seeing all the celestial and extra-celestial worlds to your mind. And someone who's powerful like that may want to stop you from doing that. So it's both the existence of a Divya Putra as a Mara, and then also the fight internally to conquer lust, hatred, and delusion. I hope that satisfies as an answer.
Yes, Bhante. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante. I see another question in the chat box. When I experience an external condition, it turns slowly to an emotion. It takes a while to understand that what arises will pass. How can I see it when I experience the condition?
See, I'm very happy when you say it. You understand at least, with a little while, taking a little while, that what arises will pass. But when you constantly have this understanding that is rooted in wisdom, instead of the emotion getting involved in there, it becomes a habit, like anything, like eating becomes a habit, right? When eating becomes a habit, good eating should be understood. And when good eating becomes a habit, your life becomes a different life. So I wouldn't agree that everything becomes an emotion, right? When I experience an external condition, I don't know what you really mean by an external condition. Sometimes it may be a death of someone. It definitely can take a while because we get very messed easily. Our minds are ready to be broken, very fragile. So I understand that it takes a little while. But when you have done the practice, that you have already trained your mind that this is happening, this could happen to anyone, that kind of a mind has a lot of equanimity. So I would say, please cultivate and radiate equanimity, like to the level of the fourth jhana, and have mindfulness with it. Upekha sati parisuddhi. Mindfulness purified with equanimity. So your mind is at so much balance. Nothing can shake you. When that happens, that means do a lot of meditation, 3-4 hours of sittings, and that you go to the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. Finally, you are at equanimity, beginning from the third jhana to the fourth, and there you see, oh, it's not an emotional response anymore. It's just a wisdom that, oh, this was inevitable, this happens. Right? Thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante, for the answer. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Mm-hmm.
I see another question in the chat box. How meditation helps in understanding the Buddha's teachings?
Meditation and cultivating wisdom comes hand in hand. I, as a monk, if I don't meditate, I'm not going to understand anything. I will be just in the same place as you, who is not meditating. If thinking that someone here in this audience may not be meditating regularly. So this understanding came to me through meditation and reflection, having that sense. So how important is, eating to you for survival? So meditation is that important for survival of a yogi mind. Otherwise, it's just a dull mind. Nothing comes, no wisdom comes. And that anything is like an electric response. You are ready to be attacked or you are ready to attack, like a vulture trying to devour something. So meditation is only the tool for that understanding and conquering these tendencies. I hear that the Emperor of China, he meditates 2 hours daily before he begins royal affairs. So think about that. Someone who is that busy has, makes that time to meditate. There must be something to it. What keeps you from doing it? If you are meditating, you will know that, you may perhaps ask this question from yourself. If you are meditating, oh, I haven't meditated today. It's like I haven't eaten today. Let me, get rid of this thinking that I'm tired and this and that, and apply wisdom there, and then sit. Immediately your mind is at peace. Why? Because your intention was clear that you had to get rid of this body momentarily and then go inwardly, breathing in, breathing out, and applying mindfulness there and freeing your mind. And you realize, oh, it feels so good to empty the trash, that no smelling dirty things are lying in your mind anymore. Keep in mind that we live in our mind, which is an unlimited area. You are not living in a house. You are not living in a mansion. You are living in your mind. If anger is boiling in the kitchen of your mind and that there's dirt under the carpets, it's a messy place. You are not living in peace. You are living in pieces. That alone should tell you, oh, if this is boiling in my mind house, I may as well do something to get rid of it. And that only way to do so is to meditate. Not 20 minutes, not 30 minutes. More than 1 hour every day. And when you are inclined to sitting longer, like watching, you can watch 3 hours of movie. Why can't you just watch your mind for 3 hours? It's very entertaining. Maybe by next week you will tell me you did that.
Yeah, thank you, Bhanteji, for the answer. I see another question, hand raised again by Dr. Sunanda. So, Dr. Sunanda, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
It is difficult to give 3-4 hours or more than that for meditation. So being a mindful for all the time is similar to doing a meditation. Can you explain?
You cannot be mindful all the time unless you saw the quality of mindfulness as a faculty, as a sati, coming to right sati, samma sati, through meditation. It's only through meditation that you separate wrong mindfulness from right mindfulness. In other words, you can set your mind on anxiety or you can set your mind on peace. Setting your mind on anxiety only feeds it more, but setting your mind on peace only increases peace. So constantly living on sati is not possible unless you have a ongoing meditation practice. Constantly living in right mindfulness, samma sati, requires meditation. Otherwise, you can live in awareness for the most part and constantly cultivate the yoniso manasikara, birth to the origin of things. That kind of mindfulness is difficult without having proper meditation, tranquil mind. Otherwise, it's busy. Tranquil mind has less things, and therefore there is space for you to have that awareness. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. We will take last couple questions here. The question is in the chat box. Can listening and contemplating on elements of discourse be considered as meditation?
So elements of discourses, I wonder if this is referring to Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta or Dhatu Manasikara, because that's about elements, or if you are referring to pieces of discourses, just listening to different aspects of the discourses. Yes, it is considered meditation as you are giving attention to the discourse, but only someone who is familiar with that will have that understanding and be inspired. Oh, look at me, I'm now able to understand all that Bhante said. And let me now be the Bhante in my mind and put the puzzle together and do the work in your own mind. And for that, you need meditation. Otherwise, you can memorize things by listening, but it doesn't solve any troubling issues within your own existence. We all have built our own worlds in different ways, and only right Dhamma and voice of another and attention to what arises and passes away in meditation can clarify things to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. I think that was our last question for today's session. So Bhante, now I request you to do Anumodana for today's Dhamma discussion and the merits that we earn for listening to Dhamma.
May the suffering ones be suffering free, fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, may all beings be at peace. May all celestial and extra-celestial beings, earthly beings, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahitthika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu sasanam chiran rakhantu desanam chiran rakhantu tvang sada.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, and good night to those who are joining from North America.
Yep, thank you, Bhante. I have two quick announcements to make. So we will have the part 2 of this Dhamma session next week, which is the Noble Eightfold Path Part 2 by Bhante Kusala. And another announcement is on the occasion of Ashada Purnima, there is a special lecture on Ana Sunday online Vihara on the topic Dhamma Chakkapavatana Sutta by Dr. Karuna Jadhav at 8:30 p.m. India time, which is like today in the evening. And for the US people, it will be tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. EST. So that's all. Thank you all for joining today. Bhante, do we have your permission to close today's session?
Thank you.
Yeah.